it is not as if television wasn't partisan.
Yeah.
But today you're in an age of hyper-partisanship.
Yeah.
And a lot of people wonder whether this is ideological. Is it, and you have your peers still in the industry, is the complete U-turn and a complete bhakti of sorts that you see, or forget even politics. If you look at what happened with Sushant Riya case, that's got nothing to do with left, right, BJP, Congress. But that sheer circus that was built around that one event. One is that, is this, and when you look at the sort of discourse around minorities in our television news, is it ideological? Are anchors driven by, to your mind, is it ideological? Is it market forces defining that, okay, ye chal raha hai, to ye becho? Or like you said, like if it's going to be government advertising or big businesses who also then have to keep governments in favor. If they're going to be the big guys who run television, then this is what it was inevitable, this is what's going to happen. So how do you place the...
So there are lots of questions in there. Look, we don't have a way of knowing which anchors are doing this because they're ideological and which are doing this because they've been ordered to, and for them it's just a job, and tomorrow the powers that be change and they'll just change with them. Honestly,
do you think that'll happen though? Like you'll see a...
Well, I don't see the politics changing, so I don't see this changing. But I want to say that between these two sets of people, I would have more respect for the people who are ideological than for the people who simply go whichever way the power establishment goes. That said, I'm old school enough to have a problem with the polarization per se.
Okay.
Right? Which means, of course, I can't bear the kind of hate mongering that takes place. I did a column for the Washington Post whose tagline is "Democracy dies in darkness," and I said in India, democracy dies in prime time. Like, I really believe, and you do so much excellent work on this, Manisha, that I really believe that TV news is a factory of hate today. That said, I really think that the answer to it is not liberal dogma, liberal cancel culture, be that in your personal spaces or in your, if you're an activist, you're a politician, but a journalist has to be sacred to a story. Right? And I'll give you a very small example of the farmers' protest. I ended up interviewing a man called Deep Sidhu, who's now died. I had no idea, I must confess, who he was. I simply saw a video of his. This is early on in the protest. I saw a video of his, and he seemed like a very well-spoken person arguing with the police at a barricade. So I told my producer ki isko interview karte hain. Okay, we set it up. It was an online interview, and I was interviewing him. And that's the day when a lot of the right-wing trolls had started saying there are Bhindranwale supporters.
Khalistani.
So I actually thought that this was a slur, and I'll ask him and he'll say, no, bilkul jhoot hai, and we'll move on. Now, to my absolute shock, I ask him this question and he launches into this big defense of Bhindranwale, and I launch into this big argument, and the interview goes sideways, and for about 5, 7, 8 minutes we're having this argument.
I'm saying he wasn't a terrorist. He fought for strong fundamental structure. That's about it. Let's not go into the...
You don't think Bhindranwale was a terrorist? You don't think Bhindranwale was a terrorist?
And
when I finished the interview, and young people in my team who clearly supported the farmers' agitation and said, why did you ask him that question? I said, why should I not?
You're giving into the right-wing narrative.
You have enabled. And I had people on the left who actually looked at that interview and said, who's kind of, not exactly liked by the right wing, I was that day called a fascist enabler. You are a fascist right-wing enabler because you have done this interview. Look, I think this is bunkum, and it actually captures the crisis of what's happening in this polarized environment. My job was to ask him that question. I didn't goad him to give an answer. He could have said, this is not true, this is a way to defame our movement. I would have moved on to the next question. He's sitting there defending Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale. I'm old enough to remember 1984, the siege of the Golden Temple. I know this. I'm using historical memory to ask him counter questions. When this man eventually goes and plants that jhanda at the Red Fort, I felt so vindicated. I remember telling Yogendra Yadav that, Yogendra ji, if you guys had weeded this man out right after the interview, you knew what he was. You were still, we had a full...
The jhanda though was Nishan Sahib, to be clear, on Red Fort.
What did I say?
No. You just said the flag, but just for our viewers, it wasn't.
Sorry. The context was that on 26 January, it's along with the tricolor, the Nishan Sahib is gone and planted at the Red Fort, and of course this man then gets arrested, and he completely sullies for a long time the agitation, and there's a kind of freezing in the agitation, saying, oh my God, what just happened here? Why do I bring this example? I cannot. Okay, there's certain things I won't platform, like rabid sexism, rabid sort of name calling about other people's religions. I'm not talking about that, but I'm saying I cannot not do a story because there is some larger political cause that I am committed to. No, I am committed to the story. My commitment is to the story, right? And I don't think that's both sidism. It is what you discover. We did Bilkis Bano like literally every single angle of it, and we believed that the release of the convicts was wrong. We got the MLA who said ye sanskari Brahmin hai, achhe log hain, which went viral. We sent our reporters back who found that the convicts had gone underground. It is not that we don't have a clear-cut editorial moral center to what we do, but it is based on facts. It is not based on my personal political preference or ideological preference. And I think the problem in journalism today is that too many journalists are countering the sort of right-wing hate mongering with a kind of polarized response of their own, and that is leaving journalism in crisis. You know, as I said this in Hindi once, I said the problem is कि हमारे पत्रकार या हमारी journalism जो है उसमें या अब चमचा है या मोर्चा है, पत्रकार कहाँ है?